Hello, everybody, and welcome to Timeless with Julie Hartman Live. I'm Julie Hartman. You know, one day I got an email from a listener who was so lovely, and she said to me, this is like 2 years ago when we launched the show, she said, Julie, I love your new show, Priceless with Julie Hartman. And I was like, boy, you are listening and paying attention closely. She was very embarrassed by that, but now every time I open the show, I toy with calling it Priceless because that's a pretty damn good name in addition to Timeless. 844-861-5537 is the call-in number, 844-861-5537. It is January 6th, 2025, everyone. Oh my gosh. We need to clutch onto a MyPillow and shed some tears. For 4 years ago, our democracy was hanging by a thread. Isn't that right? Or as AOC said, we were just seconds away from martial law. We should compile a compilation. Compile a compilation. How eloquent I am today. Of bogus, outrageous things that people said about January 6th. Though, do we really? Because all of us have heard it incessantly for the past 4 years. Now, 2 years ago, I remember I opened the show when it was January 6th, 2023, and I said, today's January 6th, and that's all I'm going to say about it. And I just moved on to the rest of the show. Today, I'm going to do something a little different. I actually want to revisit January 6th. Over the past 4 years, I've observed, and it less so as the time has gone by and more has been revealed about that day, I've observed that Democrats want to talk about January 6th nonstop, whereas Republicans kind of want to shove it to the side and pretend like it didn't happen or not address it. Again, that has certainly changed as time has gone by and more information has been revealed. But I actually want us to remember and talk about January 6th because that was one of the days that I think really solidified for a lot of people, and it took some time for it to do so, how much the media and the left, different from liberals, of course, but the left, despises the American people and intends to concoct narratives that serve to their benefit, even if they are vastly far away from the truth. I had a friend recently say to me, and she was so left, she was so, anti-Trump, vigorously opposed to anything that smelled of Donald Trump or the Republican Party. She actually said to me recently that January 6th was one of those aha moments for her that made her realize the edifice of lies of the far left in this country. For me, it was Black Lives Matter. For a dear listener of this show, Tessa Jane, who often makes appearances in the chat, she said for her it was October 7th. We all can point to these days or these events where the light bulb went off in our head. But it was interesting to me that my left-wing friend, who was so, you can't imagine how incensed she was by January 6th, said that over time she realized just how despicable, really, the way that it's been despicable it is, the way that it's been discussed. Let's look at a picture of Encyclopedia Britannica. Do we have that picture? Oh, we do. Fantastic. So sometimes I like to go on Encyclopedia Britannica and look up what happened on this day. And I thought that the inscription there was fitting. It says, on this day in 2021, supporters of President Trump stormed the Capitol where Congress was meeting to certify Biden's win in the 2020 election. Trump and his backers alleged widespread voter fraud, and here's the kicker, though there was no evidence for their claims. Really? There was no evidence for their claims? The author of that Encyclopedia Britannica inscription might ought to read Rigged by Molly Hemingway. Molly Hemingway is this fantastic author. I believe that she writes for The Federalist. And I actually know her, or I've met her a few times over the years at various events. And she, right on cue, published a book about the 2020 election and how big tech especially really tipped the scales of that election. And I remember I said to her, how did you write this so quickly? And what compelled you to write it? And she gave such a fascinating answer. She said that as time was going on, and she wrote the book and turned it around in a record amount of time. She said as the 2020 election was going forward and as COVID came into the mix, she said, I just knew that I had to write a book like this. And I was writing it in real time as things were happening. And she said, I hoped that I would be wrong, but I had to write it. Anyway, this book spectacularly exposes how the 2020 election was rigged. Now, Molly Hemingway goes to great lengths to say that doesn't mean that it was stolen. It's very difficult to be able to say affirmatively that an election was stolen, but she provides a stunning amount of evidence to indicate that this was rigged. As I had indicated a few moments ago, big tech played a massive role in this rigging. I mean, we now are basking in the free speech glory of Elon Musk owned X. We forget the days when Jack Dorsey owned Twitter. I remember when I first came on to this show, one of the first stories that I covered was the Twitter files, where Barry Weiss and Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi went into the treasure troves of documents at Twitter HQ when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and they found that there were weekly meetings during the 2020 election campaign between the FBI and Twitter to suppress conservative, namely anti-vaccine content. It also was found that at the end of the 2020 election cycle, the FBI gave Twitter $3.4 million. Now, why would a federal agency give a private company, a private social media company, $3.4 million after meeting with them several times? It smells fishy, to put it mildly. It was also found that some people who used to work at the FBI went to work at Twitter. For instance, one such individual was the former general counsel of, the new general counsel of Twitter, a former FBI agent. God, what was his name? I just had it in my head. James Butler, I believe his name was. And he was personally responsible for Twitter removing the Hunter Biden laptop story. Remember that? Which came out on October 14th, 2020, and was censored and removed by Twitter for possibly being Russian disinformation. This is all to say that Encyclopedia Britannica inscription, as well as all of the narratives that we have heard about January 6th, that the people who were protesting the results of the election were these lunatic hicks who had absolutely no relationship with truth, that there was no evidence for the fact that the 2020 election might have been done with some improper mechanisms. That's all a farce. It is completely dishonest to say that there was no evidence of rigging or of interference. Yes, Sean, is it James Butler?
James Baker.
That's what I said. You just heard Butler. Yeah. Another... I'm kidding. Another occupation, Butler, Baker. Thank you. This is all, by the way, by memory. But I read that book in, what was it? Maybe 2022. I read Molly Hemingway's Rigged. And I actually was so blown away by it. It was such a spectacular rehashing of the facts that I wrote a 20-page Google Doc with bullet point notes summarizing every single chapter, and I made flashcards and committed it to memory for this show because I knew that this would come up so often, and I knew that this would be a huge moment for our country that I just so badly wanted to have a complete and total command of the facts. So that is setting the scene for January 6th, that essentially the American people were gaslit, that there was nothing wrong with the 2020 election. No, big tech was completely impartial. They were not suppressing conservative content. That Hunter Biden laptop story was bogus. It was Russian disinformation. And may I just say for a moment something about that Hunter Biden laptop story? You know, people think that it was just lewd photos of Hunter Biden with porn stars and with a crack pipe coming out of his mouth as he laid luxuriously in his bathtub purchased by his father. And obviously the contents of that laptop included those aforementioned lewd photos. But the laptop was much more than that. The laptop, for instance, revealed that Hunter Biden and his business associate were exchanging emails with someone like Ye Jianming, who is the head of a Chinese energy company, and that he said that he would give Hunter Biden millions of dollars in exchange for introductions alone. Now, where would those introductions come from? They would come from the Biden family's connections and influence. And then, of course, there was that infamous line in the Hunter Biden laptop emails that 10% of that money would go to the big guy, which Hunter Biden's business associate testified under oath was Joe Biden. So painting a whole picture here, I know that many people may be somewhat familiar with these facts, but I am so sick and tired, as I'm sure many of you are, of the gaslighting that there was no evidence, as Encyclopedia Britannica stipulated, of improprieties in the 2020 election. I'll tell you one other thing, though. Again, Molly Hemingway's book has chapters and chapters and chapters of myriad examples of various instances of voter fraud. One of the problems with the 2020 election was that it was COVID, and the election was carried out in a revolutionary way, where a record number of Americans voted by absentee ballots. Now, by the way, a 2005 bipartisan commission in Congress, which was headed by none other than the recently deceased President Jimmy Carter, found that absentee balloting was the single biggest source of fraud in American elections. And so in the 2020 election, record numbers of individuals were voting by absentee ballots. And here's the kicker. Mark Zuckerberg, which he has later actually kind of apologized for, believe it or not, gave $450 million primarily to blue cities and states to privatize election procedures. These are called Zuck bucks. We can't forget this. And many conservatives and Republicans don't even know about Zuck bucks. They know about the Hunter Biden laptop story. They know about the Twitter files. They know about some of the things I just went through. A lot of them don't know about the Zuck bucks. $450 million went to privatizing election procedures. These grants to, again, overwhelmingly blue cities and states to get out the vote was billed as PPE or other COVID preventative measures. For instance, to supply poll workers with masks and with God knows what. I'm forgetting what they are, but I had them in my classes. There were these huge air filtration machines that would zoom around the class and cleanse the air of your COVID. The Zuck bucks were billed as that, but they actually, in effect, did not go to those COVID PPE measures. They actually went to changing election procedures and putting individuals who were part of nonprofits who claimed to be nonpartisan in charge of election procedures. To give an example, it's so crucial that we know this. One such example is an individual named Michael Spitzer Rubenstein. He was a part of the Center for Tech and Civic Life. That's a nonprofit organization through which the Zuck bucks went through, and it brought these people into these election precincts supposedly to help ease the burden of election procedures, but really these individuals had a direct effect in how those procedures were carried out. Michael Spitzer Rubenstein basically ran the election in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He was in charge of, for instance, curing ballots for mistakes, setting up the rules for how certain ballots would be processed if there was an incorrect signature or no ID. He would be in charge of determining what would happen. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, Molly Hemingway's book is so spectacular with this because she shows emails with Green Bay election officials saying this guy, Michael Spitzer Rubenstein, is coming in and he's essentially taking charge. This is an outside individual. The Constitution of our state stipulates, and the election procedures of our state stipulate that government individuals are supposed to oversee elections, not private outside individuals. And the very opposite is happening. And in Wisconsin, there were a lot of fishy things. For instance, Wisconsin law says that if you are mailing an absentee ballot, you have to show an ID in order to vote by mail. But there's an exception in the law to this, where if you claim that you are indefinitely confined, in other words, you're disabled or you're very sick, you can get someone else to bring your ballot to the drop box and you do not have to present an ID. And so what happened was the clerks of Wisconsin's two biggest Democrat counties, Milwaukee and Dane counties, encouraged voters to claim that they were indefinitely confined for, COVID safety, even though they were not. And what happened was nearly 200,000 of the million people in that state who voted by mail claimed that they were indefinitely confined and thus didn't have to show an ID. It's stuff like that that does not give you confidence in the impartiality or the, I don't know, what is the right word? The effectiveness or the integrity, that's the word I'm looking for, of the election system. In Pennsylvania, because of Zuckbucks and the people that were put in the state in order to oversee election procedures, they allowed early voting in Pennsylvania, which is against actually Pennsylvania state law pertaining to elections. They also allowed ballot harvesting, and the Zuckbucks helped facilitate ballot harvesting, where essentially a third party delivers your ballots. That's also against the law in Pennsylvania. There were disparities across the state in the way that ballots were counted. In some counties, they would count a ballot even if it didn't have a signature, and others, they would disqualify the ballot. I could go on with the examples, but it is so unbelievably frustrating to see people continue to say that there was no evidence of any kind of fraud or any kind of improprieties in the 2020 election. Meanwhile, in 2016, let us not forget the Russia hoax. Talk about no evidence. Talk about malignant interference. So that's just really setting the background for January 6th, because I think it's very easy to look at that day and go, what the heck was going on? And by the way, it was a terrible day. It was a horrible, horrible day. I was so ashamed as a Republican and as a conservative. I see Sean nodding. I'm sure many people are who are listening are nodding. It was horrible. I in no way condone what happened on that day. It is so stupid to go to the Capitol and breach the Capitol. It is against the law. It is stupid. It is terrible. I will condemn it in the strongest of terms. That being said, there were things that happened on that day which really make the whole reality of the situation seem a bit hairy. And that is what I take issue with. As much as I can condemn what happened on January 6th, and certainly the people who broke glass and who breached the Capitol and who assaulted police officers, they deserve punishment, of course, and consequences for their actions. But we had the whole January 6th committee, and we were told that this was an insurrection and that, this violent mob went into the Capitol and Capitol police officers were helpless and they were trying to hold people back. And in some cases that was true. But then we saw that 40,000 hours of January 6th footage was not shown to the public from that January 6th committee. Now, if the purpose of the January 6th committee is to uncover what happened on January 6th and to make the American people aware of that day, why did they withhold 40,000 hours of footage? And then what happened is that when the U.S. House of Representatives turned red in the 2022 midterms, and Speaker Kevin McCarthy became the Speaker of the House of the U.S. House of Representatives, he got control of the various committees, and he disbanded the January 6th committee, but he got access to those 40,000 hours of footage that was not shown to the public. And he handed over that footage to Tucker Carlson, who at the time was at Fox News. Because Speaker McCarthy was like, I don't have time to comb through 40,000 hours. I'm going to give this one to Tucker. And what Tucker uncovered is the reason why my friend, who I started off the show by talking about, said that her mind or her eyes were open because of January 6th. Here we saw footage of Capitol police officers escorting individuals around the Capitol, completely upending much of the narrative that we had been told. Let's go back and let's watch what Tucker uncovered. It is truly stunning. Video 2.
But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists. They were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system. Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things began to get chaotic. Capitol police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
We're going to make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and even try to open locked doors for him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him.
Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him! Shoot him! It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley, and the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next to him place him under arrest? Until now, no one could even prove that even happened. But it did.
You know, as I was watching that, my episode that I did maybe 4 months ago called Make America Nuanced Again comes to mind. Because, again, of course, I mean, as I was watching those images of people breaking glass and coming in, I was like, that is just so scummy. That is just so terrible. Of course, I condemn that in the strongest possible terms. That being said, why the hell were we not shown that footage? Of the 9 different Capitol police officers escorting a guy around the Capitol? Are you kidding me? So 2 things can be true at once. It can be true that much about that day was horrible and people should be punished and receive adequate consequences for their crimes. And at the same time, there is some really shady stuff that was withheld from the American public. It seemed in that video like the police officers were kind of agreeing with him and cheering him on and wanting to come around. What I just want is transparency. I just want everything to be shown about that day, and we can, again, divide the things that should be condemned from the things that deserve a second look. And that is the real scandal of January 6th. The real scandal of January 6th is that we were not given the full information about it. And then immediately it was branded as an insurrection. Immediately people jumped onto it and selectively showed footage to make it look a certain way. And of course, I mean, you saw it. Footage doesn't lie. A lot of it was gross. But we need transparency. And that is really strange. I would love to ask Liz Cheney and other members of the January 6th committee, why did you not show that? I think we know why. All right, before we move on, my God, this is like conservative trigger day. It's January 6th. It's 2025. Whenever I heard somebody on TikTok say that when she is going to be so upset this year because whenever she hears 2025, all she can think about is Project 2025. And then now I'm going to do another trigger conservative thing and talk about MyPillow. Although, come on, what's so partisan about a damn pillow? Everybody needs a pillow and slippers and towel sets. And right now you can get these products at a big discount. They're famous My Slippers. That's my favorite product. They're so comfortable. Are regularly priced at $119.98, but for a limited time, they're only $59.98. Their 6-piece towel sets are back in stock too, only $29.98. In addition, MyPillow is extending their 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 receive absolutely free shipping. Just go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman. There are hundreds of MyPillow products. There is something for everyone in your life. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. Again, call 1-800-566-6745 or go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Hartman. Okay, just want to quickly tell you, we did this last year. The Epic Times, one of my favorite newspapers, every single year does a list of new laws in the state that you live in. So I get the California subscription. People who live in other states get that subscription. And I want to tell you about 2 new laws that are coming into effect in the state of California. The second one is arguably more damning than the first, but the first one I think reveals a lot. This one is called SB 1100. And here's what it says, reading from the Epic Times. Beginning in 2025, this law will bar employers from requiring a valid driver's license from job applicants unless driving is an essential job function. Now, why do we think they're doing that? Exemptions may also apply if employers determine that alternative transportation is not comparable in travel time or cost to the employer. Okay. Here's another part of it. Tells you a lot. It will also be illegal to discriminate against individuals based on a combination of 2 or more traits protected under state law: gender, ethnicity, marital status, disability, health condition, faith, heritage, or citizenship. There you go. Can understand what's going on there. And then the second one is, as I said, the far more damning one. Oh my God, this one truly makes me nauseous. AB 1955 bans school districts from adopting policies that require educators to inform parents without children's consent if a student identifies as transgender. So it is literally a California law that it is illegal for teachers to inform you that your minor child may be transitioning. Oh, California. Sean, what is the reason you stay in California?
California is a beautiful place. It's great if you can afford it, and that's why I stay in family.
Everybody answers that. California. Every single person, they say it's a beautiful state.
Well, what do you want me to say? I'm a big fan of the way they run the state. No, it's atrocious. But if if you're detached from it, then it's pretty cool.
Everybody says that, and it's true. I mean, the only thing that's really keeping me is family and the beauty. The beauty trumps left-wing policies. Okay, to end the show today, it is a new year, and Sean and I on Dennis and Julie were talking about New Year's resolutions. Great episode, by the way, and Sean was very open and vulnerable with his. I don't even know what mine was. I actually do know what mine is. Yeah, go ahead.
You said you wanted to travel.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's more like a guarantee thing. I know I'm going to do that in 2025. You know what my New Year's resolution really is? If someone has a financial job, my goal is to listen and retain. I can't tell you how many times people are telling me about their private equity job or their venture capital job or their investment banking job, and I'm just like, I am so bored right now. So I'm going to listen and I'm going to retain what they are saying. That is my New Year's resolution. Anyway, it is a new year. People are making resolutions. And there's someone who I really admire. She started a New Year's resolution, or sort of more like a life resolution, about a year ago. And I think she's someone who has done a spectacular job of making a goal and sticking to it. And I want to tell you about her. I don't know how many of you are aware of this woman, Blac Chyna, or her real name is Angela White. I have actually become quite obsessed with her. I think that she is so inspiring, which I know sounds ridiculous because her reputation is certainly not fantastic. Blac Chyna, I Googled her before this show because I thought, how would one even describe her vocation? She, I think, was a porn star. She's also a rapper, a socialite, they say. But let's be honest, she's most famous for her baby daddies. I'm so sorry to say it, but it's true. She had her first child with Tyga, and then she had her second child with Rob Kardashian. Their daughter is Dream Kardashian. So sorry, truly, to say that she's most famous for who she slept with, but it's kind of true. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I have been watching the Kardashians for almost my whole life. They launched when I was 9 years old, and I hate to say it, but I have been watching them for a really long time. And Blac Chyna came into the fold, never knew who she was. She came onto the Kardashians when she started dating Rob, and then when they had their daughter Dream. And they had this spin-off TV show on E! Called Rob and Chyna. And even in 2015, 2016, when they were doing this show, I have to tell you, I thought she was, how do I put it? Not exactly a role model. Like, she wasn't someone who I admired or someone who I respected, but there was something about her that I actually found to be kind of likable. I feel like I saw something in her. I felt like she was actually deeply a good person and a vulnerable person who was looking to come out of her bad lifestyle and really elevate herself. I really remember that as I was watching the show. But yeah, she did not have the best reputation. She was known for being very slutty. Sorry, but it's true. She was known for being loud and angry. She had all of these prosthetics. She had fake boobs. She had fillers. She had tattoos everywhere. She would have the really long nails and the bling and the red hair. I mean, she was just like ghetto, super, super ghetto. So here's a video of Blac Chyna in her heyday. This is video 3. Now, when you watch this, you're going to wonder how I ever thought that there was something likable or vulnerable about her. It didn't show up in these kinds of scenes, but this was the reputation that she had.
That you kept accusing me of doing when you're the one actually texting females, Rob, it's up. Because what are you still texting other females about? About what? But if I do that, I'm a liar and I'm a cheater, though, right? But you can text, though. What? Who are you texting? And what the are you talking about? Who the are you texting? And what the are you still texting? Who are you playing with? Stop playing with me because you're a liar.
Put the camera
and you
on
accusing me of doing when I'm not doing. Nobody's doing. You still texting? Just told me this, Rob. So I'm lying? Am I lying? Are you still texting? Yes or no? What are you even trying to do right now? You know what? You, because you're a liar. Because if you wasn't, you would have said no. Bye. Have a nice life. By yourself. I swear to God.
Timeless is such a crazy show. The range of stuff that we show and talk about. Oh my God. So yeah, that was Blac Chyna. She was you saw what she was. So Blac Chyna, like a year and a half ago, decided that she was done with all that. And by the way, that's a pretty benign scene. I mean, she would have these scenes where she would be fist fighting with her mom, where she would be dancing provocatively on a pole. Like, she just did not have a good reputation at all. And she would be in these rappers' music videos, and you get the picture. And she just decided that she was done, that she felt like she was better than that. And she has completely transformed herself. And I could not admire that more. She's gotten rid of her fake boobs, rid of her fake injections. She's gotten her tattoos removed. She's wearing very modest clothing. She is not wearing makeup most of the time. You'll see a clip where she's not wearing makeup. She converted to Christianity. She got baptized. She lost a ton of weight. She said that her big focus were her kids, God, and health. And she became sober. And I just think this is someone who we should pay attention to and who we should applaud and cheer on, where you can really transform yourself in life. And maybe for some of us, our New Year's resolutions are not as drastic as that, but they're certainly easier to attain than that. And if she can accomplish what she did, I think that's good motivation for us for whatever we're trying to accomplish. So let's look at a video. She was on Fox News. And you can just tell her demeanor, everything is changed. And she talks about shirking her old lifestyle, coming to God, and getting her stuff together. Video 4.
What was the deciding factor for you to make this change? I mean, you were making great money, you achieved fame. Why did you give that life up?
I had to. Honestly, the life that I was living, it was fast-paced, you know, money coming in, money going out. You know, and I just honestly kept running into like all these problems and these issues and this and that and lawsuits. And I was like, you know what, like I need to change. Like I have to change my life. I can't be living like this. I have 2 beautiful babies. I have businesses. And I had to really just get back to myself. I kind of lost myself, honestly.
Was there one moment that you said, I got to change this now? Was there one deciding moment?
It was, I mean, the deciding moment was on my birthday. So I got baptized on my birthday. And then from there, I just started putting in the work, you know. People have to also realize once you get baptized, you have to be willing to also change everything about you so you can start moving into the light.
Yeah, and Angela, you talked about removing one of your tattoos on Instagram. I want to talk to you about this. Listen.
Okay. Y'all know that I had this Baphomet tattoo, right? It got to come off, you know what I mean? I'm not about to have no mark of the beast, anything like that. I just don't want anything negative or demonic on my body anymore.
Angela, when did you realize how dangerous this was spiritually? And this wasn't the only addition that you removed from your body, by the way.
The more I started reading the Bible, you know, and it's so bizarre to me because at the time, I didn't see nothing wrong with it. And that's like the issue, you know? We don't see things that we're doing wrong because we're actually sitting in that moment. And I just started like praying to God, you know, and taking the proper steps, going to church, and just really focusing like on myself and my spirit.
You can't imagine how crazy it is for me to see this because I've been watching this woman for years and the transformation is crazy. By the way, that was actually at the beginning of her journey. You can see in this next clip how much weight she's lost. In that video, she was wearing makeup. She's not wearing makeup in this next video. She, on this show that you're about to see her go on, there was an episode in her old reality show, like 8 years ago, when she was going on the same show, and she was freaking out because her hair extensions weren't right and her makeup she felt like wasn't good enough, and her dress, you know, like she was freaking out, yelling, screaming backstage. And then the new Blac Chyna, and she's going by her real name, not her stage name, she's going by Angela White, comes on the same TV show celebrating 1 year of sobriety, and look at the turnaround.
There's a lot out there for your kids to see, but I want them to see this. Do we have our cake? We want to celebrate your 1 year sobriety.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Sobriety for celebrating.
Thank you.
This is what, and those are yours. And so the audience, you don't know this, but I know this. And we talked about her a second ago. Okay. You reconciled with your mom, and
Yes.
she wanted to be here, as you know. Tokyo, Tony, come on out! Oh my gosh! I'm gonna cry.
I love it. I'm so proud of her. And I'm telling you, I never thought I would say it. Blac Chyna is my inspo. Sorry. Angela White is my inspo going into 2025. Unless Sean has something to add, I am peacing out until tomorrow. It's been so great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And my gosh, what a show. January 6th in Blac Chyna. Never thought I'd have those two in the same sentence.
I think it's pronounced Chyna.
Chyna. Blac Chyna. Well, she actually spells it that way. Chyna. She spells it the Trump way. And you know what? Final note. Her best friend is Amber Rose, i.e. Amber Rose, who spoke at the RNC and endorsed Trump. They are thick as thieves, so I wouldn't be surprised if she were a Trump supporter. We'll have to find out. See you guys soon. Take care.